Welcome to the Worldwise Wealth Podcast. I'm your host, Nicole, and this podcast is your guide to building a truly borderless life. From entrepreneurship, investment migration, tax optimization, and everything in between, this show highlights the nuances of a global citizen lifestyle. Let's dive in. In this guest episode, I sit down with Alex from Atlas Vaults. We discuss all things diversification in this episode, and if you have listened to this podcast or our YouTube channel, this is going to be an episode I can guarantee that you will resonate with. Alex has built out storage private vault facilities in Panama City, and he is also a diversified global citizen. So in this episode, we go into the importance of vault storage, especially offshore storage for silver, gold, and any valuable that you have as a global citizen, along with the banking system, which is definitely a topic that we could have recorded an entire other episode on. So, with that, let's dive into today's episode.
Thank you for having me and for letting me have this opportunity. I started and am still a trial lawyer. I was a trial lawyer. I'm still a lawyer, but I don't practice anymore in Miami, Florida. For about 30 years, I practiced law and did lots of trials. And then I went into business and I decided to get into investments. And I started to discover I started to get really into the economy and what was going on with the economy and what was going on with the dollar and the euro and the central banks. And the more I dove into it, the more I got the feeling that things were going to get really bad and things were continually growing worse. And I decided to take control of it, and I started to invest heavily into gold. And when I decided I was investing in gold, I also decided I wanted to have an area that was safe and secure, and I wanted to be away from the political fray that was going on everywhere, from Europe to Canada to the United States. And I found Panama. Panama was a place that was ideal for what I wanted. It has a sense of freedom. It has stability, and most Americans and Canadians may not be aware of this, but it's extremely stable and very highly evolved legally. So I looked into it, and I wanted to store my gold there, and I found nothing that was of any that made me feel good. I found nothing that they gave me a sense of security. So I made my own, and I created a vault in the same style and essence of the Swiss vaults that have levels of security. And because I couldn't find anything that was ideal, I created something that I felt was secure and protected privacy and was going to make people like me feel like their gold and their assets were going to be safe and private and and away from the system of banking that creates a danger for everybody. So that's how I got involved in it, and I created basically a private vault system like they started in Switzerland, but I also run it like an American. I keep things very professional and I keep things very up to date, and I try to make sure that service is very important.
So, what year are we talking here? How long have the vaults been around in Panama? And when did you start getting involved in gold and silver?
I got involved in 2014, and by 2015, I was very disheartened by what I where I could store what I was investing in. So by 2016, at 2015 I started. In 2016 I completed Atlas Vault, and it took it was a special design in the sense that we had to create multiple levels of security and an entrance that was separate from the street entrance that provided privacy and security for people that were coming in and out, and and so they wouldn't be the objects of or be prey to the robbers and people that might be out there. Not that there are, but when you're carrying a lot of money, you don't want to be the target. So I had to create something that was both secure and outside of the temptation level for people in the street.
And I'm curious, you mentioned there that it sounds like some of the solutions abroad in other jurisdictions were not up to your standards. So what were some of the things that you saw in other countries that really made you understand that you wanted to establish something of your own?
The first thing obviously, I'm sure, like most of us were watching the news, and the political systems are going crazy where they decided they wanted to take more and more power from the individual. I'm a very big believer in the individual freedom and individual rights, and Atlas stands for that. The reason it's named Atlas is not because I love Greek mythology, which I do, but it's named Atlas because of Atlas Shrugged. It was meant to be a place where you can find individuality, power to be in your own control of what you have. And when I saw banks debanking people, banks in Greece were taking away your money overnight because they considered it a haircut to pay for the debts that they had imposed on people. Uh, when I saw Canadian truckers were getting debanked and were being literally punished and destroyed for having exercise their First Amendment rights, but even though Canada doesn't have one, but for exercising free speech, I realized that it was developing, it was evolving. More and more of your rights were going away. As I started to delve into the essence of banking, I became, I mean, I was a lawyer and I never really cared about it. And I started to delve into what banking really was. And it's the greatest fraud that's ever been committed on humanity. If you think about it, they create money from nowhere, and people don't realize this, that they make money from nothing and they take away your money. And people don't understand that when you put your money in a bank, you're no longer the owner of that money. When you put your assets in a bank, in a safety deposit box in a bank, you're not the owner anymore. They're not really custodians of your money. By law, the banking system by law is protected. You are now an unsecured creditor of your funds, which means you've loaned the bank money for nothing. And if the bank should fail, you are the last person in line to ever get anything from the bank. This was something that I had been discovering little by little. When it just hit me, it really bothered me, and I wanted to have something where I can keep my savings in private. I can keep savings safe from the banking system. And I'll tell you what, I'm a victim of a failed bank, and I learned the hard way too that banks, once they fail, you are not going to see anything from them. People don't understand that the system has been created to protect the banks and not the individual saver. And then there's also the other part of the conspiracy. The inflation that is created, that creeps in little by little, destroying your savings. No matter how hard you work and what you do to save your money, it is being eroded away in a way that we don't really realize it. And I can tell you a couple of figures if you want that will make you understand just how bad things really are, that we've been hypnotized. I'll give you an example. In 1913, the central banks were created in the United States, the Federal Reserve. At that time, $1 that existed, $1 bought you $32 worth of goods. $32. As little by little, it's been eroding your power. As of today, that $1 that was created in 1913 has lost all but 3% of its value. That means that 3% of value is what exists today. And it means that if you had any money saved up as in cash, you lost everything. And I'll give you an example from 2019 so people can understand what it does to you. In 2019, prices have increased just from 2019 to today 25%. That's how much you've lost just from 2019. So $100,000 in 2019 can now, to buy something with that original $100,000 today, requires you to have $125,700. So if you had saved $100,000 and done nothing with it, you lost $25,700 just by keeping it in the bank. And those are the things that, and by the way, that's considered, I want you to understand, that's considered, this is the genius of this system. That's at 3.8% inflation. So if we just look at from 2019 to today, with 3.8% inflation, we have had a 79% drop in what we could buy in the power. So I got into gold and I got into silver, and I became a big believer in the freedom that it brings, because I think the biggest goal we need to have is to have an alternative system away from the monetary system that's basically imprisoned us. And that was the biggest motivator for me. And I was hoping that Atlas would also motivate and bring like-minded people that wanted a sense of freedom. And what I created with Atlas, I specifically made it so that contractually, Atlas has no idea what you put into your box in your vault. I cannot know, my people cannot know what you have in it. Yes, if you buy gold from us, we know you bought gold, but we don't know what you do with it. We don't know when you sell it. We don't know what you move. We don't know what happens in that box. And that's the way it should be. Essentially, what I wanted was to create something that was like having a building, and you have your own apartment, and in that apartment, the owner of the building can't go in and can't know what you're doing in the apartment. That is what keeping your wealth stored at Atlas was meant to be. It created an opportunity for me to bring like-minded people, but it also gave me a problem that I had to solve for myself and for my clients. I wanted to have the ability to have my savings as an alternative to keeping savings in a bank. But obviously, when you have your savings in a bank, you want to be able to also spend it when you have to. So I was very fortunate to come across, became a client, and we partnered together. A very, very important company called Kinesis Money. I don't know if you've heard of it. Kinesis Money decided to make Atlas Vault one of their 13 vaults as part of their organization. So what happens is they store their gold with us, and what you can do as being part of our organization when you're with Atlas, you can take part of your gold or all of your gold. You can submit it through Kinesis, and Kinesis converts it into a digital gold. So 1 gram of gold is converted into 1 gram of digital gold money. And that digital gold is represented by 1 actual gram of gold in either my vault or 12 of the other vaults around the world. So it's 1-to-1 represented by actual physical metal. And that lets you then turn that gold into actual digital money. And then on their app, you can turn the digital money into dollars or into euros, and you can deposit that into your account. So it was the final perfect solution to what I needed. And thanks to Kinesis, they gave me that other aspect of the equation. So now you can save your money. in gold, in privacy, and inside our vault. And when you need to, you can convert it, and you can do it both ways. You can take digital gold, convert it to gold, physical gold, and take it from one of the vaults, including ours, or you can turn physical gold into digital. So that was a fantastic opportunity for all people like me that were sitting around saying we need to be able to save, we need to be protected against banks, and this is the best way to keep your assets private and in your complete control. And that's the most important thing. When people have their gold inside a vault like Atlas, they have 100% control over it. No one else knows or can touch it without their own permission.
Thanks for sharing all of that. Really interesting. This is the right place to go off on banking and the financial system, most definitely. But I also like the solution that you have created where it's really, to me, it seems like an end-to-end solution of not only do you have the gold, but you can spend the gold without having to go and withdraw the gold and go through that entire process. A couple questions I do have for you in talking
Okay.
about this. And I think the first is why Panama? I'm sure you looked at other jurisdictions, but why Panama over anywhere else?
Yeah, Panama. First of all, most people may not be aware. I'm sure you are, but most people aren't aware that Panama is a fantastic place for economic freedom. First, they have a very low tax, and they believe in laissez-faire. You have the ability to have your own business. You don't have government on top of you. Yes, there's government, but it's not the same as what we're used to in the U.S. and everywhere else that wants total regulation. That doesn't happen in Panama. Panama has a freedom of in terms of what you earn as income that is unheard of. Most of my European friends, they cry when I tell them yet that whatever they earn in Panama outside of the Panamanian jurisdiction in a contract or services is zero taxed in Panama. When they hear that in Italy and they hear that in Greece, they want to cry. They can't believe it. How is that possible? And most of them as well cry when I tell them what the sales tax is. 7% sales tax is amazing, and most of them don't understand because they just want to they can't believe that's possible. But that's the way it is in Panama, and Panama has a that there's a reason why ships, uh, famous ships, and are registered in Panama, because whatever they earn is not taxed by the government in Panama, and it's legal. It's accepted. Also, there is an incredible. There's a fantastic trust law that was created in Panama, and I always tell my clients, please contact an attorney and have them prepare something, because you can own something in Panama with this special trust. It's called a foundation, and they copied it from Liechtenstein. So they just took the exact law from Liechtenstein and they put it into Panama. And what it is basically an incredible. It's a very strong asset protection law that allows you to put your property in the name of your own foundation that you control. And by the way, you can also open an account as a foundation with Atlas, and that means that you then you're protected always against any kind of probate issues because it never dies. So the property you put into that foundation will go on forever. You tell in your foundation who takes over if you're not around, and it's all protected, and you don't have to worry about the courts. You don't have to worry about any of or creditors actually, because you are not the owner anymore. You are controller, but the owner is a foundation, and you have that extra layer of privacy and protection. And more importantly, as a father or mother, you want to protect your property for your children and their children. That protects it 100%. And I always tell my clients, talk to an attorney about this, but this is really something you need to look into, because it's something to take advantage in Panama that really benefits the individual.
Yeah, I completely agree. There's so many benefits. And if you're listening, you can't see, but I was just nodding my head along as you were saying all of that because there are so many benefits, especially if you're coming from, yes, many countries in Europe, the US, Canada, that people don't realize. In Panama, I think a lot of the time you think of gray lists, blacklists, Panama Papers, but it has changed significantly and there are so many more benefits now. So going back, I appreciate you sharing a little bit more about why Panama, very great jurisdiction for many things, especially just living in general. Are the vaults, are they segregated in terms of gold? Are they non-segregated? How does that work for clients?
It's very, as a matter, you can look into our website. You'll see the videos and photographs. It's done in the form of deposit boxes. So you have your own box that you pull out from the vault itself, and then you. By the way, so people understand, most people don't realize we cannot open the box, the individual boxes. We have one key. The client has the second key, and it needs the two keys to open up the box. So we cannot go into it. Once you open up the box, you take the box and you go to one of the private rooms that we have there, and you get to open up your assets inside that private room without any of us being involved. So yes, it is completely segregated. It's not the way some of those other vaults that just store things like on a shelf. And no, this is 100% secure and private, and only the client has complete control over it. No matter how bad, no matter how bad they want to share it, that we don't have access to it. Now we have done something where we've created a box. If somebody wants to allow us to do something, like once in a while they'll say, I want to leave this where I'm going to be flying around the country or outside of the country, and could you please keep this in your communal box, and with the contractual authority, obviously, telling us that at some point they would like to take that and convert it into digital currency with, let's say, with Kinesis. They give us that right, and we put their gold in our communal box that we then do their bidding and place it into Kinesis's account. But that's the only time that anybody has access to any other person's gold or silver or other assets. So it's completely segregated and completely in the power of the client.
Perfect. Good to know. I guess in terms of that, and in terms of security in general, is there anything else that listeners, you tell your clients should know regarding the security?
Yeah, you'll see some places. As a matter of fact, the places that I used to, one of the places I was actually at one time in. I'm not going to name the place, but you what you see is you'll see a nice looking vault door, and you'll see what looks like a secure place. But what you actually have is the illusion of security. What we created was we have 6 layers of vault doors that you have to cross to get through. And I have a video where if you get on our website or on YouTube, you can see it for Atlas Vault. You have to cross 6 different segmented thick iron door vault doors, and then until you get to the actual vault. The entire vault area, the entire office is surrounded in concrete and bulletproof glass. When you get to the actual vault, the vault is a giant safe. It's 90 square meters, the vault, and it's about 13 to 14 inches thick of concrete and iron or steel, concrete and steel all around. It was so heavy I had to reinforce the bottom. So it's a giant safe. The difference in you go to any other places, and most of them, most generally speaking, you'll get the big vault door, but you won't see a giant safe. You can see that the original place I was in, it actually just used the wall of the bank next to it. That was just a wall as as the dividing line between the stored actual vault and the wall. So anybody could just break through that wall and get into it. You can't do that with us. You have to use enough dynamite to bring down the entire building in order to just break the walls and get into the vault. So it's very important to look and see and go beyond the initial appearance and get into the actual layers of security that exists. And also, I will tell you, beware of places that have the little security guard with the gun. That's the worst thing in the world you can do. Nobody can get into our place without permission. And if they do get in and they want to do something, they're stuck like rats if we don't let them out. So you don't want the hired gun that sits outside, because they're in Panama or anywhere else in South America. It's the worst thing that you can do. So before you can come into our facilities, you have to present your passport and another form of ID, a license, and we make copies of it, and then you can come in. It doesn't matter if you're the first time or not. Once you become our client, we take your biometric information, we get your fingerprints, and it's instilled inside our system, and you can then use your fingerprint on the biometric scanner, and that allows you to go past every layer and step to get to the vault with us. But you have to have you're always accompanied by somebody from Atlas.
Interesting. Thank you for sharing some more detail on that security. I guess before we wrap up, is there anything else in this conversation that we have not touched on that's important too?
It's really important for people to think about what their future is as it's developing. With the creation of the central bank digital currency, we have got to take lots of steps to become our own, to stay free. And in Europe right now, they are going full speed ahead to try and take away your rights with digital currency. And digital currency is not what most people think. Digital currency is the way they can control how you spend money and how they can punish you if they don't like how you spend money. So you've got to start taking control of your life. It's not a conspiracy theory. This is what they're telling you they're going to do. And the best way to protect yourself is to have power and have control over your life, and invest wisely. And some of those things, the best way you can invest, aside from stocks and everything else you might want to get, is protect your money in gold and silver and control how you save that money. And that's the best way to do that, is in a place like Atlas, and keep yourself completely free of the intrusions that are really increasing by leaps and bounds now.
Especially in Europe, but quite honestly, everywhere we see it more and more. CBDCs, yeah, definitely a topic that we could go off on here. But if you're
Yeah.
listening to this podcast, then you probably have a pretty good understanding of the background behind that and countries implementing that. Hopefully.
What we saw during COVID was enough to make you, if it didn't make you upset and didn't make you want to find alternatives to this, I don't know what else would happen. I mean, people's lives were destroyed because they refused government orders. People's lives were destroyed because they protested. People were not allowed to take their money out of the country as punishment. These are things that are going to happen over and over again, and we need to take control over our lives. And it's the best way to do it, to take control and find a jurisdiction like Panama that gives you that freedom, and then find a place that you can have control over everything you do.
Could not agree more. Well, thank you for being here, Alex. So, where can people find you and Atlas Vaults?
Atlas Vaults, you can find at atlasvault.com, and we have a YouTube channel where I've done a few videos. You can see a couple of videos actually show you a tour of the place. Our website is there, and you can call us on the phone at Atlas Vault, and you can find our phone number at the website.
You've just listened to the Worldwise Wealth podcast. Visit our links in the show notes below or at worldwisecapital.com to learn more about how we can assist in your borderless diversification journey. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you in the next episode.